Hello, cats and kittens, felines and felidae, humans and variant humans, and every race, class, and subclass. Welcome to another edition of Brainy the RPG Cat. So, um, I have. I'm working on Brainy the comic as I'm drawing some more comic pages today, and as you can see, I've got roughs for 2 new pages. And we might be getting to that later this evening, but I wanted to come back to this page for a moment, and specifically, I wanted to start working on this panel right here because I've spent a lot of time trying to consider specifically what I'm going to be doing as far as um, coloring is going to be. So I thought I would just spend a little time focusing on that tonight, and so I'm going to be doing this coloring. So usually I exchange my tablet for my second tablet monitor when I do this. Because I'm going to be laying down some solid colors first, but then I'm going to be, more than likely, I'm going to be going back to the tablet and I'm going to be, putting in some things by hand. And so we're going to go ahead, we're going to work through all of that. And, this might take up the entirety of the stream, and then I'll get to the other two pages next time. But, either way, we're settled in order to do a significant art stream tonight. So, thank you everybody for tuning in. As usual, these streams are brought to you by GreatMedia.Games for inexpensive TCG single cards. Visit GreatMedia.Games and use the code 10finity at checkout for 10% off your online purchase. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and let's zoom in on this image. And so this is an image, this is on page 4. I previously worked on page 3, and then the 2 previous pages would represent the cover and the inside cover of the overall comic. Okay, so I can close this, I'm not going to need that anymore. Let's see here. So when we had worked on this panel, we had used line work in order to put out the library shelves. We drew the character art on top of that, and so there are 2 different layers here. This one's for the character art, and this one is for the background. So, we're going to do the responsible thing. We're going to label our layers now. So this layer is going to be called, character, character art. Alright, and then this one is going to be background. Alright. So, we're probably going to have to put ourselves in a situation where we are going to have to create a color layer that goes behind both of those 2 layers that we just named. And so this was a guideline layer, and it was a color layer because it was red. So let's call this 2 points perspective. Perspective diagram. All right. Call that the 2-point perspective diagram. I don't think there's anything in this layer. I think this was just an extraneous layer. If I delete it, then probably nothing will change. Well, just press the trash can here. Alright. And so now this is our paper layer. Well, actually, this is a paper layer behind that paper layer. So what I should actually do here is I should create a layer. Yeah, it's a shame that I had only just deleted a layer, but let's see. Okay, so this is going to be base background color. Color, okay. So that's the thing, is that because I had originally set this up to work mainly within black and white, I'm going to have to make sure every time I create a new layer, I am going to need to make sure that it is going to be a layer that is in color. So let's see, raster layer. I had a problem where the menu was on the. So, actually, I'm going to need to get rid of this layer. I'm going to use this as the base background color layer. Alright. So, yeah, let's rename that. Alright, and so from here, we're just going to take the paint bucket. And we're going to refer only to the editing layer. We are going to pick out just a color, a background color that is really just going to represent the entirety of the backdrop. And so I think, we're going a little bit gothic, so it's going to be kind of a split between red and orange, and then it's also going to be very dark. And I'm trying not to make it, just a light mahogany brown or something like that. Maybe a little bit more ash, something similar to that. Take that, put that all in the background. So I apologize if I go silent early. I've been up since pretty early. I forgot to return my old router to Verizon, and only remember late last night. Oh, well, that's no trouble at all. I do appreciate you pretty dedicatedly coming in to all of these streams. But let's see. So, you don't ever have to feel obligated that, you have to spend a certain amount of time here. But other than that, I, I had a pretty exhausting day myself today. Is that I did a whole bunch of things that, I wanted to catch up on. And so, Mondays tend to be a day off of work from me. So, when I am doing, so when I'm at home, there's just a lot of things that I task myself with doing. Is that I somewhat force myself in order to do. And so, I did a whole bunch of them today. Is that I woke up this morning, I chugged an energy drink, I bench pressed, I took a 5-minute run, I did my laundry, I cleaned up the restroom. I just did a whole bunch of different tasks today, and just I was going a mile a minute, So, I fall within the range of being like middle aged. And so, the issue with being middle aged is that, sometimes you just don't have the energy to do things. So as long as, you have an enormous amount of energy, then you definitely, want to use that in order to do what you need to. Okay, so what I'm doing right here is I'm trying to take a second layer, and I'm trying to create something of a gradient that's part of the background color. And so I'm productive right on. Yeah, I was just, and so I amazed myself at the sheer amount of activity that I had intended to put into it, and it's still, sometime between 3 o'clock and 5 o'clock I actually ended up taking a pretty lengthy nap. So let's see. So I want this to be a little bit circular. And so, there's some of these tools that still just kind of remain a mystery to me. So I have to play around with them the same as other people, in the same way that I'm presenting them to you. So really, just a little bit of a little spot of darkness receding into the background is really what I'm trying to go for here. So let's see. Go from about here to here. That actually might be better if I were to do it at an angle. See, I shouldn't probably just put it like a sunburst in the center, but yeah, that really just doesn't cover enough of, what I consider to be the background of this. So something like that, so just a little off to the side. And let me see here. And so I can adjust the transparency here. I can make it lighter if I want to. And so I'm probably just going to want it, just to be a few notches lighter so that it looks a little bit more natural, because when it's all the way to full, you can see the outcropping of where the circle is, and I don't want that. And so this layer contains the base background and the gradient, so I'm probably not going to need this layer anymore. Whoops. Well, I guess I spoke too soon. So it's really just that this is visible. Doesn't make sense that this would lose any kind of fidelity if I delete it. Oh, it's really because, yeah, this does contain the same color as the background layer, but it's also been lowered in transparency. That's why that's changing to a lighter color. So, I could merge those two layers, but I'm going to leave it that way for now, just so that I can, continue to experiment with the tone, the overall tone of the image. All right, so now that I'm going to be working on this, I'm going to be working on, two under layers of this image. One of them is going to be the background. All the colors that are going to be in the background, the other ones are going to be all of the colors that are going to be placed on the characters. So let's go ahead and let's start with the background. So there's just going to be a significant amount of work done on this, and so I'm going to pick out another layer. Oh, actually, you know what? I'm going to need a new layer, which is a raster layer, and I am going to make it color. And so, I just got to make sure that I continue to do it that way. And we'll call this background color. All right. And so that is going to be behind the background layer. So I have a choice between, I have a choice of how some of this is going to work out. For these large solid areas right here, what I can do is I can use the magic wand tool to select the area inside of it and then fill it with color afterwards. But there's a part of me that also, wants to play a little bit around with the texture of the paint. Try to see if I can find some special brushes that are going to add to the realism of the image. So I think, yeah, this is already going to be the time that I'm going to move this down to my tablet, and I'm going to continue from there. Alright, so put that there, and then we're going to start to just kind of work between these two layers, the background color and then the black background line art. Alright, so it's gonna start to move in, just pretty deeply, like on this top beam right here. And so probably what we're looking at doing is we're looking at trying to see if we can find a paintbrush that is going to give it a certain amount of texture. So we have these. Yeah, for normal pens, we have these for markers, and then we also have pencils, pencil style painters, and we also have paint style brushes. And let's see, I want something like a watercolor brush, or an oil painting brush, or a wet bleed brush. And so I also have some brushes that are like distress inkers and dot tints that I had bought from a very special brush online sales place. And so some of them just have vertical lines, some of them have dot shading that is similar to the that is similar to classic comic books, and some of them, and they're exclusively in the colors of cyan, magenta, and yellow because they want you to attempt to work with them in a way where you're only using like three color type of pressure. And so, looking at the rest of these paintbrushes, trying to see what else I have. You know, lots of designer ones, stain tile ones, wet wash might be interesting, but so would watercolor splash. And so some more realistic paintbrush styles, brown watercolors, flat watercolors, soft bleeds, textured blenders, watery brushes, some thick markers, textured markers that imitate gouache, oil paints, pointillisms, yeah, thick oil paint, India brushes, bent husky, smooth, rough, lighter ink, darker bleed. So, like I say, we're probably going to want something, yeah, that is going to create something of a watercolor effect. And then, so I'm going to try to do wet blotting ink, and then we're going to choose, something in the neighborhood of a brown, like a brownish. And then from here, I'm going to need to take my stylus, and I'm just going to need to start filling in this color. So you can already see, there is a difference in texture that we're playing with here. If I stroke it once, then you can see that it's barely filled in. If I stroke it a second time, it's going to be a slightly darker, and then we're just going to continue to put the layers on in that manner. And so that definitely works for the effect that I want to do, but I do want this brush size to be just a little bit more manageable. Alright. So, whoa. This thing has quite a big multiplier. So I gotta be careful about, the thickness that I insert anything in. See, 28 seems to be too big. I'm probably going to need something like 22. Actually, I don't think this is the kind of brush that I want to fill out, because I think, any time that the brush intersects, it kind of looks like something like like there's fingerprints in the middle of it. Maybe I want to go back to that thick oil paintbrush again. Okay, first stroke looks like that, second stroke looks like that. Alright, so that's not too terribly bad. But I'm going to want to have a darker brown. You like the effect? Yeah, it's a pretty nice effect. So, maybe you want something just a little bit more mahogany color, just like that. Okay, this will work nicely. And so, basically, we're just kind of building the color into the background. And so every once in a while, you might see my brush, color slightly outside the lines. It's perfectly fine, because, it is a background detail. So I'm going to erase a little bit on the globe, because I might want that to be a different color. Not necessarily the brown oil paint that I am making the rest of the library shelves. Okay, this is where it's going to get tricky, because, this beam is going to get a little bit thinner and lighter every single time that I pass by it and provide the strokes, but alright. And so we're just going to go to the end of this line right here. slightly lowering the width of the pen as we're going. So once everything, just kind of recedes into an area where it's not going to be seen anymore, then we can go ahead and we can stop. So from here, we can go ahead and we can increase the brush size again. This beam is going to stay approximately the same width. Alright. And so definitely the oil paint brush was the way to go, because it does have a nice underlying texture to it. It looks almost exactly like wood. Which would we want the shelves to look like wood, of course. And so we might make another decision about this. We might put up another layer. Might be able to add some darkness to it. For now, I just want to make sure that I do lay down the flat colors, because they're important. You need to make that decision about, what the baseline colors in the background are going to be. So, a little bit like that. Let's go back to the second shelf right here. Alright. And then erase that corner right there. So that covers most of that upper area right there. We just have these two sides of the shelves in order to finish painting, and then this side of the image will be done. I see just a little bit of remaining transparency on that upper part right there. So I'm gonna probably need a little bit bigger than that. God, this is gonna recede pretty significantly right here. this corner right here. And so you're going to run into things like there's some obvious gaps right here, but, you know, no need to pay it any heed because people are barely going to notice that because it's in the background. I sometimes, get that kind of aesthetic from like things like very old cartoons, like the old Hanna-Barbera cartoons. The backgrounds of those were drawn by a former Looney Tunes animator by the name of Michael Maltese, and another very well-established artist by the name of Ed Benedict, and they effectively worked the same way as that. They would create literal oil paintings because this was well before there was any kind of digital art, but. And really just kind of using, the same kinds of dry brush background techniques that you would like see on an episode of Bob Ross, like painting with Bob Ross. You take a look at those these days, you think, well, those things are beautiful. That's a beautiful method for making backgrounds for a Yogi Bear cartoon or a Flintstones cartoon. Okay, so this is almost complete. I'm just going to need to do this archway right here. Yeah, you can totally see it. Alright. So everything from this area to this area is going to be the shelves. I believe I had wanted to put a rug in the room. That's why I had put these two lines here. But since we already have the inking color out, I'm going to do the other side of this. And I'm going to paint this area right here. And so that this can match this side. Things are a lot more narrow and a lot more dense on this side of the backdrop. I only seem to draw one line there. I'm a little bit in the dark about how that's gonna end up looking, but. See, I'd probably make that just a little bit lighter. Just trying to fill up this inner area right here. So in going with the third point perspective, this is one of those beams as well, but it just turned out to be this broad and this thick because of how closely it was going to be facing the outer point of the composition. Then I'll just do this one here. So yeah, significant of this is bleeding out of the bottom. And I don't really have to erase it, but I want to. Just being adamant about that. Alright. me see if I can put everything into frame a second time. And alright, so that all looks... Yeah, that's got exactly the kind of texture that I wanted. Just out of curious, let me move the character art back in. Make sure that all those lines, converge to a point where they're going to be covered up by the colors of the characters. And it looks like everything is basically going to look alright. Okay, so, looking really nice. Yeah, it certainly is. So here's another decision I'm going to have to make. So, probably this isn't going to be the only background color image. I'm probably going to have to make another one. Another raster layer. And I'm going to want that one. I'm going to want to make that one into another color layer. And so I'm going to want to put that behind the background layer, and now I'm going to want to start filling these shells. I don't want to use the oil paint. I'm probably going to have to pick out a slightly different texture just to differentiate the two. But so those are watercolor brushes. These are paint and apply brushes. So I'm probably going to want to choose an opaque watercolor brush. And then I'm just going to start filling in the bookshelves. So I'm just going to be making little paint rectangles. And just fill those shelves with, just rainbows of different kinds of color. I mean, so, looking at the bookshelves behind me, everything is, a different kind of shade of brown. So... name this layer background books. So once again, we're working primarily with earth tones here. Probably going to want them to be a little bit lighter. And we're going to want a much thicker brush. So just like the other brush, when I do paint this in layers, the layers are going to become stronger depending on how many times I use a stroke. And so every once in a while, yeah, I can change the grade of some of this paint just by going over it 2 or 3 different times. And so they're going to just stand out. They're going to stand out in a way where they almost look like they're glowing. And then, I'll put something of different gradient in the areas that I am not painting it this color. So we're probably going to want to get a smaller brush right about here. Though that was a 50 size brush, this is probably going to have to be closer to a 30. So these areas where there is these areas where we're looking at the shelves that are much farther away are probably going to be the ones that are going to have the biggest variation of color. So you put one right against the corner right here. Alright. And so you're starting to see what I'm going to do is that I'm just probably going to put, things of a slightly different color in between those other bookshelf areas. So once again, this is probably going to be an area whether you're going to see a lot less simply because we're a little bit closer to the foreground with this one. Okay, and so yeah, basically, yeah, we're starting to fill this out, this area out with bookshelves. Like once again, let's take something, let's make a very deep brown, and we're gonna contrast what we just pasted. Well, no, that's very barely visible against the background. That's not going to work. Probably, yeah, something a little bit more mahogany. Just fill in that additional space. Try to keep everything rectangular, even though it's still just loose and being very loosely painted. Say, looking really nice. Thank you very much. This is going to layer on top of this just a little bit. And so, I can finish up these large areas with just these two colors. I'm probably going to want to pick a third color for the more narrow bookshelves. All right. Let's zoom in pretty significantly right here. So let me back up on that one a little bit. Probably going to want to do every alternate one this color, then pick out a third color for these shells. That seems a little bit too broad. Maybe I only want to color half of that. And this one right here. So that still looks very much like it's spaced like a group of books would be. So I'm probably going to want to extend this one out to this corner because there's a good amount of that section that isn't even going to be visible. Alright, so that's good. Let's try to get a little bit of more of an ash into this, like a deep ash color. Yeah, I think that works. There's a shelf there where I'm probably going to want to break up the color a little bit, but for the most part, I think I spaced this out the way that it's supposed to. Alright. So now that I create that contrast, I do want to come back here and I just want to add that color to 2 or 3 of the books on this corner. Alright, that looks good. So yeah, there's some broad squarish areas that I can continue to do this, so throw in some of the gray on these sides. Alright, so that looks pretty good. So once again, insert the character art again. Everything, seems to be able to fit into that area without bleeding. So I am probably going to want to sample something right about here. There's a lot of variance in that brown, even though I only used one brush for it. And then I want to go back to the oil paint, and then I want to make that a slightly darker color. And so, while I'm still on the background books layer, I just want to fill in this area here with just a little bit of a contrasting brown so that you can see the overhang. I don't think there's anything similar to that on the other side. Okay, and so I think I'm going to start making a decision about these orbs right here. So, I want them to look relatively glowy, so I'm going to want to try out the transparent watercolor. Try to see if I can find just kind of a middle lavender that I want to put into that. And so this is on the books layer still. So just fill that out with a dull color right now. Barely even stands out against the background. It's probably going to add to how it's going to look as a transparency. And so, once again, by adding some additional layers, I am creating color variance here. So take a much lighter color, and then I am going to go into this gleam right here. Probably just use a white. Make that just make that area a little bit brighter. It's almost like actually polishing something. Okay, that looks good. That's all that needs to be. So once again, I'm still kind of in the background area. I want to try to see if I can take this area and add some depth to it. Let's see. So we are probably applying kind of a gray or kind of a deep black, and then we are I haven't tried a gouache brush yet, so let's see how that applies. So I'm going to need that to be much bigger. Alright. I seem to have gone back into the chat room. So I think maybe I might have temporarily logged out. But I'm here again. It's cool. The stream is still running. So let's try putting in deeper color. And so here, just make this darker so that it appears that it's a separate room. I'm not feeling too much in the way of contrast. I'm going to probably want to put in something darker, and then I'm going to have to put in something lighter in the background. Hello again, OS Devin. I think, while I was looking down and working on the composition that the playback split on this, but maybe you can confirm that for me. Let's see if we can mix in a slightly lighter color, even something that is of a completely different contrast. No, you've just been watching. Yeah, you haven't missed anything. Okay, that's good. So that's basically the effect that I want, but unfortunately I think that's a little bit too bright. Might even need to be black. Alright. Let's flatten out that bottom half so it makes the exact same line as the rest of the composition. Put the characters in is that Brainy is just going to be sticking out of that drawer. And he's going to be sticking out of that door, and he's going to be covering up a lot of the bottom half of that. So that's not going to be visible in the final part of this. So I have to think about this area between the floor and between this area of the floor that I believe is supposed to be a carpet. And so maybe I'm going to want that to be gray. And maybe I'm going to want to use a gouache pen for that too, but I'm going to want to make that a lot smaller. I gotta get these two areas to blend. They're not gonna want to blend. But just get them to connect well enough so that you can tell that there's a difference between the floor. And so that's what the floor is going to look like. So do the same thing on the other side. Probably only covers this area right here. And so we're going to want something like a contrasting color, probably like a yellow or a little bit of a gold, so that we can do this slightly smaller area where the trim of the carpet is supposed to be. Okay. That's good, but I need to color inside of the lines just a little bit better than that. Alright. And take that, bring it on to this side. So that just leaves this kind of area in the middle. And so I'm probably going to want another contrasting color here. It's probably going to be something like, keeping things, relatively warm, because, that's really just what the tone of the whole image is supposed to be. I want it to be red, but then probably like a pretty deep red. So it's stands out, but it's still it stands out, but then it also still meshes really nicely with the background color. And so I'm somewhat following the line of, where everything is present merely in this section. Because then when I put the characters back into it, how much of it is still going to be visible? Very little of it, because the Arch-Wizard's chair is right there, smack dab in the center of the area. Alright, so yeah, this pretty much works for the background. And so let me give that a save. Alright. So, with the background painted, I can now focus on the character color. So, once again, making a new layer, a new raster layer. It's going to be in color. And put that behind the character art. And then what? Character color. Alright. Okay, we're going to zoom in on Brainy, and we're going to start using his usual colors. It might help me to import an image of Brainy's colors in order for me to do this. Let me see what's most immediately on hand. Usually I just have one image of Brainy that, I usually, pass around on Twitter or something like that. So, probably going to want to start with the fur color here. And so when I color in characters, as opposed to all of the oil and brush painting that I've been doing, I usually just go back to flat inks in order to color my characters. Just very solid colors. And that helps them to stand out against the backdrop. Alright. A little paw right there. Okie dokie, I'm pooped. I think I'm going to turn it into for the night. Alright. Take it easy and good stream. Yes, thank you very much for tuning in, OS Devon. I appreciate you. Have a good night's sleep. So, let me see. I'm looking at the clock. I'm going to be on for probably another hour. Cheers, Brainy. Good night. Have a good night. Okay, so taking this once again. Getting some of the same color for the belly of her. Does it get the darker brown for the darker brown fur? It's not too much darker. I think it's even lighter. Grab the texture, this texture. Game Night says, hello, Brainy, how's it going? It's going pretty well. So I'm in the middle of actually coloring a panel right now, and so things look pretty good, particularly in the background where I use different kinds of textures of um, oil painting pens, and so the background looks good. It really pops, and so I just moved from that to beginning to color the characters in the background. How are you doing tonight, Game Night 00? Pick out kind of a mahogany paint color, and then I do want to lower the size of this brush. Yeah, that's a bit too thick still. Put the streaks in this fur. A little bit of pink for his mouth. I'm great, just living that game life. What have you been playing recently? Lavender Nose. You know, even though I just have dot eyes in this scene, maybe I want those to be yellow. That's a little bit too deep. Maybe just this lighter yellow. Let's get that color of his royal blue robes. I've been playing the heck out of Cyberpunk 2077 now that they made it playable with patches. Yeah, so I've been seeing a lot of people getting back into it too and doing lots of different kinds of character runs. Having already beaten it once and now just coming back to it now that they feel like it's a little bit more playable. You've been getting more into tabletop RPGs lately too. Oh, do tell. What have you been looking at as far as game engines? And so, lighter color for the trim of his robe and his hat. So I've been playing Savage Worlds and Prowlers and Paragons with some friends, and I got a Fallout TT RPG character running, and I've been GMing a Rifts game. And I'm looking forward to a new game with a certain interdimensional feline. So far I've already made the announcements that, we're going to be working on a TTRPG actual play soon, and I'm hoping for it to land in the last week of October, after we do a recording session roughly around the 16th. And I've already announced the name. It's going to be Tales from the Meowing Portal, and so this is everything that I've said. Um, Game Night 00 is one of the people who has expressed an interest in being one of the people joining us for the actual play. So that is worth saying as well. I want to drop the logo pretty soon. I haven't had an opportunity to. I was preparing for tonight's stream where I was going to be coloring, but maybe I'll get an opportunity to um, when I start working on my etchings tomorrow. Okay, so it's mostly colored in, except I do need to actually put some of Brainy's stripes in, and ordinarily, yeah, they're a slightly darker color than the ones that are over his muzzle. So in this situation, I can do you go into the character color. I can lock the transparent pixels, and then just kind of use the already existing paint in order to put the stripes in. Brainy, Marin Mermaid. Thank you very much for tuning in. Let me see. Do you have clips for your channel? Yeah. Let me try to see if I can do a shout out. Be sure to check out her channel. She's looking to get her first 50. Uh, she's looking to get her first 50 followers. She is a fantastic variety streamer, and a PNG VTuber who is also a mermaid. So absolutely check her out. Her channel. There's a Brainy comic. Why am I just learning about this? Well, Echo. I've been working on it just a little bit behind the scenes for maybe a couple of weeks now. I'm hoping to see if I can get it released in the first week in November. So not only is it going to be a comic book, but it is also going to be a light game book. Is that I am going to be dropping some 5e compatible items, locations, scenarios, and a quest board, and that's going to be included with the that's going to be included with the comic book. And so, I'm working really hard on it. I'm working hard on multiple projects right now. One of them is going to be the actual play that we're going to be working, that we're going to be discussing in the next couple of weeks. And also, I'm hoping, to start that and a pair of podcasts. One of them that is supposed to be a podcast that is a celebratory of all podcasts, called the Actual Play Pod. So yeah, lots of irons in the fire, lots of individual projects that I'm working on right now. I say, Echo Does It says, nice, count me in. And so yeah, I am 100% ready to count Echo in. Okay, Echo is also a pretty good streamer. He does some TTRPG content. Oops, I spelled that wrong. Don't you lie. I'm not lying. So I really do like
Oh, you gotta
a
swing
lot of
with me,
the
buddy.
I am.
TTRPG
I'm
streams you
trying.
did, including the very recent one that you made
Right.
for
Got him by the ball sack.
Fallout, or was it
I
Fallout,
got
or
him.
was it? I'm
Sacrifice
pretty
me.
sure it
Just
was
let me
Fallout.
go.
No.
Now I've forgotten what it's based on, but it was a really good session that I listened
Okay,
to.
baby.
This looks like do or die time in Echo and
You know what?
Human Fall
We go
Flat over
together.
here. There it went. Don't worry about it. I'm sure they respawn very safely in the front. But thank you very much for tuning in, Echo. How are you doing tonight? Let me turn off that transparent pixels. I want to go back to the character art section. So this is a very minuscule drawing of Brainy, but I'm going to try to see if I can still fit in his freckles and his whiskers. See, this was the character art, right? Okay. Still using too thick a brush for that. Okay, there we go. I'm doing good. I'm just chilling mostly. Yeah, same here. Okay, so that colors in Brainy in this image. Now I'm going to have to work on the Archbishop, which is going to be a much larger paint job. So I haven't even, the Archdruid is, just such a new character that I haven't even really decided what his colors are. I assume he's wearing the same color blue as Brainy because they are from the same acolytes. So that's a safe assumption to make. And so instead of the G pen, maybe the real D pen would work better because maybe that, coats everything a lot better. So recently, I made a major change to my computer. Why did that change shades? Let me see. Let me make sure I got the right shade there. So I recently made, some pretty significant changes to my computer. And the main one is that I replaced my old school hard drive with a 2 terabyte solid state drive. The solid state drive was 2.5 inches. It was, just literally an inch shorter than what the other hard drive was. And I needed to buy an adapter in order to get it to fit in the exact same hard drive cage. That adapter, it's just like a metal frame that adds an extra inch to all of the sides, so it'll stay in one place while it is inside of the hard drive casing. And so I cloned my hard drive, I inserted the hard drive, and everything is working just perfectly. And so just the other day, I got a couple of new hard drive power cables, which I needed in order to put a second 2.5 inch solid state drive into a backup section of my computer. And so that one is working pretty well now. And so, they're both, solid state hard drives that are, ordinarily, a 2.5 inch hard drive. You could put it in anything. You could put it in a PS5, you could put it in a laptop. They're extremely versatile. They're very fast moving too. And so yeah, I was having a no end of trouble trying to use a whole old school hard drive with my gaming PC setup. Not even really in the sense that it was making games run slow, but really just in the fact it was taking a long time to boot. I was having lots of issues with, just given how slow the hard drive was loading things, it occasionally did cause errors. Even like the occasional blue screen of death would pop up as a result of it not being able to parse the information quickly enough and correctly. And so I had to do some things in the background, like I had to. I had to do some things in the background, like I had to put up a couple of update all of my background hard drives, and I had to, get a shareware program, and I had to pay money in order to fix that out in order to prevent some of the errors from happening. But I was trying. The whole time I was thinking, well, what can I do in order to actually put a 2.5. Well, what can I do to actually put a solid state hard drive in there? And so I was looking. I was just kind of idly going through Amazon, and I happened to see that they had some of these 2.5-inch hard drives on sale. And so I did have a little bit of a conundrum because I did believe that these things were going to work, but I knew that these were actually optimized for laptops and they were going to be puny. So I went online and I looked it up and I was trying to think, when. Yeah, well, I was trying to see, ask questions like look for FAQs and things like that would affirm that these were going to be able to work with my PC, and eventually, I landed on a website that said, well, it's perfectly safe, but you're going to need to buy an adapter, and then I went back to Amazon. And I saw that the 2.5 inch to 3.5 inch adapters were on sale there. They only cost $5. So I waited until I got paid. I spent all of 150 on these two hard drives, and I installed them, and they're working great right now. I installed a couple of games that were probably about 45 gigabytes apiece onto the backup hard drive, and they appear to be running well. I know that if I'm in a situation where I put too much on those backup drives, then I'm going to run into the same problem again. Is that the entirety of my PC is going to start slowing down while it backloads everything that's on those other two hard drives. But when I had first bought this PC, it's particularly telling that when I first bought this PC, I had I had bought it with an old school hard drive, but it had two empty slots inside of the casing that were specially designed for 2.5-inch hard drives. So this is definitely a configuration that they want me to use with this computer. They were just too cheap to actually send the hard drive. Or maybe I was just too cheap in order to buy the package that included the solid state hard drive. It could have been either one of those two. Ooh, I'm sorry I'm going back and forth. I've been trying to color too. Yeah. I mean, so this is my first attempt to actually even color anything that's in this comic book. And so, I'm still largely, experimenting with all of the brush textures and different types of coloring options that I have here in Clip Studio Pro version 1.0. And so I think, the inner trim of the Archwizard's robe should be the same color too. And so, once again, go back to this flesh tone that I just chose arbitrarily. I mean, he's supposed to be a high elf, so yeah, he is going to be very, very pale skinned. So, I have kind of just a weird general style is that I have a tendency in order to make my characters relatively flat colored, but then, I tend to try to blot out the colors and then make them contrast a little bit less in the background, and that's definitely something that you can see in the composition that I've been painting. Let me see, I think this is just a little bit more blue that comes down in this direction. See, I wonder if everything from here to here also needs to be blue because he's sitting in the chair. I haven't even begun the color of the chair. I'm still just coloring the character. See, how wide does that make his stance? Because I didn't just inadvertently give the Archwizard just a great big tuchus. A giant Botham. A colossal rear end. A considerable rear shelf. And so I am probably going to want to take this color and I'm going to want to make it a slightly deeper. And then go back in order to do the texture pen because the texture pen is probably going to make up the all of the wooden panel areas of this chair right here. And so for the brushes, I was choosing, oil paintbrush. Oh, that is very deep. I don't even know if that's noticeable. That's how deep it is. Maybe if I make it more of an ashen color. No, that doesn't seem right. Yeah, I might have to resort to making it the exact same color as the background. I hope it doesn't get too confusing. See, I thought I had messed up the color, but then it suddenly occurs to me that I have not colored that area in yet. I'm gonna cover a color over that in a moment. All right. Okay, that's almost the entirety of this. And so some of that's going to be need to be adjusted later, but now for the color of the back of the chair, just for the sake of contrasting, maybe I'm going to need to go with violet, but maybe I can get it a slightly more royal violet, and so it's a color that hasn't been present in this composition just yet. All right, so I'd say that is one fully colored panel. At that point, there's a very good chance that I might go back and I might add some contrast in there. Maybe put in some semi-transparent gray and for shadows. But other than that, that is pretty much how that intends to look like. So let me see. Where are we? We're at an hour and 36 minutes. Well, I'm gonna spend the last 30 minutes of the stream. I'm going to start working on the new pages that I've drawn. I've hand drawn the rough sketches for. Oh ho ho, looking good. Ah, thank you very much, Mermaid. That means an awful lot to me. See, yeah, I'm glad that this is turning out. This is actually turning out pretty well. So I'm very happy for it at the moment. So second panel of this same drawing is something that was just a very high contrast black and white. And there was a part of me that was thinking, well, maybe I was going to release this in black and white, but now I'm coloring it. So I also have to go back there and I just really have to fix a lot of straight pencil lines and everything like that and just clean up the overall line work on that in the moment. And let me see, what else did I have here? Well, that's just something I imported so that I can get the color working. And so these are the roughs for the 6th and 7th page of this comic book. And so there's just something that I kind of scribbled on a notebook and then took a photo of so that I can get a basic idea of what the poses are supposed to be. And then I just take this and then I just severely clean it up as I'm doing the ink work while I'm working inside of Clip Studio Paint. And so I'm using Clip Studio Paint in order to draw this. As I've mentioned, multiple times in the past, is that I work as a Media Lab assistant, and I am allowed to get a discount on Adobe Creative Cloud projects. And so I have another comic called Not Like the Norms that I have a tendency to draw in Photoshop. And the reason I draw in Photoshop is sometimes I use it to eat up time that I have in the lab that I'm not doing anything. And so I just go ahead and I use their Photoshop in order to draw a few online strips and then post them online. The social media, the attempt at being a social media mogul never really comes to an end. But I think I can take a moment. Let me show you. Let me load the comic file and let me show you the other 2 pages that I have inked. So this is a page that precedes the other 2. And let me see, where else is and then this is a page that follows it. And so this is just, I've done a significant amount of work just doing the character lines, and I'm only just getting to working on the background and the colors for these. So just take a moment in order to display all of these on stream before I go on to my next one. And so I have a tendency to just do all of my sketch work using an actual sketchbook and just an old-fashioned number 2 pencil, and then I import it into these images, and then I just do the ink digitally. And it's when I make the ink digitally that I'm able to clean this up and then just make it a little bit more of a comic quality. Yeah, I'm the same way, but I use a mechanical pencil. I also do non-photo blue pencils, which is something I try to do. Probably should have tried to do when I made that ugly-looking panel on the 2nd page. So yeah, so everything is going pretty nicely with this comic so far. It's just I have to go now. I got to go back and put in the backgrounds and the colors. I'm particularly proud of this panel right here because, sometimes you make character drawings that perfectly encapsulate what the characters are supposed to be about, and I think this one is just about perfect. It's all looking great. Thank you. I used to love a plain old number 2, but I like the thin lines a bit more. Yeah, I do tend to draw a little bit thicker, and sometimes that's to my own detriment as well. Alright, well, we're drawing close to the end of this stream, and I want to get to at least one panel of the new page. That will motivate me into continuing to work throughout the week on the rest of this. So, let me disappear this for a moment because I want to look at the blank page, and I'm going to start coloring. I'm going to start adding panels. So, once upon a time, Clip Studio Paint used to be known as a manga creator, and so it was a art program that was specially designed in order to create manga. And so one of the things that they kept from Manga Creator was this ability in order to create, in order to isolate a drawing into panels. And so, I'm somewhat eyeballing it here, but I'm in the middle of making a 6-panel right here. And so just by creating that, what I've done is I've created a layer and I've created a folder where the panel is going to be. And so I can just go ahead and I can clone that 6 times, and then I can move each one of the panels so that I can create my panel array for this page. And I'm somewhat eyeballing this, I'll probably use the rulers and I'll straighten it all out a little bit better when I get ready to publish the comic. But and that's effectively what I'm just going to do here. I'm just going to clone this this panel 6 times, and then I'll just have the 6 panels that I'm going to be drawing in. Oop. I think I made these a little tall. But that's the thing, I can just push the ones at the top a little closer to the top so that I can fix that. So, working on frame number 1. Okay, I'm going to make that rough draft visible again. Okay, and then I'm just going to drag it into the section for panel number 1. And then I'm just going to work on the line work for this panel. And so, while, even though, I have a tendency in order to, not necessarily, this is kind of a, let me start over with this. This is kind of a flawed method that I have a tendency to use, but so I have a tendency to draw a lot bigger in my notebook than I actually need for the panels. But then when I go ahead and I start importing the rough draft, what I do is I just take the pencils and then I just resize them to what I think that they need to be. Something that's really important when you're making a comic is that you got to make sure all of your art leaves a significant amount of space right here on the top half, so that you have enough room in order to put in speech bubbles and captions and everything like that. So, make a new layer. I mean, naturally it's a black and white layer because I am just going to be doing the line work. Say, make a brush size. So generally I tend to do something in the neighborhood of a number 5, which is probably the same width as a felt marker, as a felt tip pen. And so, probably some of the significant amount of drawing that I used to do when I was younger either used a felt tip pen or a Sharpie marker. So I think that's probably the reason that my line width is always so big. See, Brainy is having a moment of vulnerability in this panel. So, I'm a little bit improvisational with what eventually goes into the what goes into the speech bubbles, but generally he has this sense that he doesn't actually think that he can pass his he can pass his wizarding trial because he's just a little person. Is that he's a little cat and he doesn't believe that he can do much. And so this is effectively him, the panel of him telling him, the Archbishop, saying that, what am I going to be able to do? I'm just so small. And so I get to experiment with Brainy and poses that I don't get to when I'm merely doing VTubing. Like I get to angle his head down, put him in different poses, and give him different facial expressions. So I brought his ear a little bit lower than it usually is in this panel. And he has his hat facing forward as opposed to usually when it's in the background. All right. So this is turning out pretty well. Is that it's very rare when I think that I totally nail a pose when I'm doing rough drafts, but I feel like that with this one. Hello, Queen Vampiress. Thank you very much for tuning in. How are you doing tonight? I do have to show you that I just completed the first full color panel of this artwork. And so I do want to show that to you, Queen Vampiress. So that is one of the first full color panels of this comic. Wow, it looks cool. Yes, thank you very much. Alright, so alright. Alright. So, oh, I forgot to do the top of the hat. Alright. So let me disappear the rough draft here. Something's a little bit off here. I think there needs to be just a little bit more in that direction. And then he was in the middle of sitting on a cushion, which he was doing in one of the previous panels. There we are. That's absolutely adorable. Alright, so yeah, we're 5 minutes till. Almost at the hour mark, but this it concludes our broadcast day. Thank you, absolutely, everybody, for tuning in to Brainy the RPG Cat. I saw a lot of great people today. Thank you to Queen Vampiress. Thank you to Mary Mermaid. Thank you to Game Night 00. Echo Does It. Thank you to OS Devon. I'm starting to get, a regular group of people here, and I'm very, very grateful for that. It means that, a lot of people are paying attention to the work that I'm doing, and so I'm looking very forward to bringing out, all of those great new projects that I'm going to be putting out soon. The podcast, the actual play show, and this comic book, which, I hope is going to be, follow everything else that I have been working on so far. And I'm glad that, there are people in here like Gecko Does It who are showing their genuine enthusiasm for some of the work that I've been doing. But anyways, thank you everybody very much for tuning in. Well, Queen Vampiress just recently put in the TCG link, but we're partnered with greatmedia.games to bring you inexpensive TCG single cards. Visit greatmedia.games and use the code 10Finity at checkout for 10% off your online purchase. So, thank you everybody for tuning in. Thank you, thank you. If you guys don't mind staying tuned, I'm about to do a raid. Let's see, who would I like to pay a visit to right now? I think... Now let me see, who is on right at the moment? Let me see, they might be interesting. They might be good too. Okay, so... I think I'm going to go ahead and I am going to head towards Akame. Right now they're in the middle of playing Temtem. So Akame is a Snake VTuber who specializes in playing monster-based TCGs like, monster-based JRPGs like Pokemon. And, well, Temtem happens to be one of those. So let's go ahead and let's pay her a visit. Let's start with a shout-out.
You don't breed me. You don't breed me. I breed you. Oh, yes.
Alright. So, good night, Queen V. Alrighty, so thank you everybody for tuning in. You guys have been a fantastic audience. I'm going to be back tomorrow beginning at 6 o'clock with our regular playthrough of Yu-Gi-Oh! Gosh, why do I always forget the subtitle? Yu-Gi-Oh! Duelist Arena, Yu-Gi-Oh! Duelist Thing. Our regular playthrough of Yu-Gi-Oh! Duelist League to get me together with Great Media Games and the great people from Rocky Mountain Pro. So, thank you everybody for tuning in. I will see you guys tomorrow. Have a great night, everybody, and thank you very much for watching.